guess I found out you're my.
I got it on good faith that we gon' be major. Keep me a baddie, I don't know it's in my nature. Pushing up on me, cause you know I got the flavor. You ain't gotta ask twice, I'll give it to you. Kill 'em with the flavor. Kill 'em with the flavor. Ooh, kill 'em with the flavor. Ooh, kill 'em.
What's going on? What's going on? It's your boy Icon. And once again, we're here on 910 Sports TV. You know what I'm saying? First, I got to thank God for this opportunity, because without him, there'll be no us. You know what I'm saying? And hey, before I introduce y'all, I'm going to introduce y'all first. Then I got to tell y'all this quick story. Y'all going to laugh real quick. Anyway, I got my right hand man, the best coach up and down the East Coast. I got my man, Lamont T. Goins. What's going on, brother?
Hey, man, it's another day and on with two dynamic brothers that's in the game rocking it hard. So it's always a pleasure to be on with Icon and Jacob the Great.
Yes, sir. Then I got the Cowboys' biggest fan. He probably grinning from ear to ear because look like they did some damage this weekend. I got my man Jacob the Great. What's going on, brother?
Yes, Cowboy Nation in the building, man. Glad to be in the land of the living, and I'm ready for this season. It's gonna be exciting this year.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hey, I gotta tell y'all this quick story though before we get started. So last a few days ago, I'm at this rest area, and I get out the car, and I got a empty soda can, a bottle in one hand. I got my phone in the other. I got my glasses, but they sitting on my head like this right here. So it's dark. So I'm walking into the gas. I'm walking into the rest area, you know, to the building, and I'm not paying attention. You know how you gotta take that step on the sidewalk. And I said, and all I know, I felt like if you're watching a comedy movie, and you know how you watch a comedy and they do the thing where the person fall in slow motion, and all you would have seen was the bottle go one way, the phone go the other way, and my glasses go another way. And I fell so quick, you know, sometimes when you kind of fall, you know you about to fall, you catch yourself. It wasn't one of them moments. It wasn't them moments like somebody came from behind me and just sucker punched me. You know what I'm saying? It was just wow. You know what I'm saying? I'm just and it was funny because it's one of the points, you know, when you're embarrassed, you jump up real quick. You know, so I jumped up real quick, whatever. Hopefully, luckily, it was only one car sitting over there. So I jumped up real quick, trying to walk in the building. I'm limping, trying to walk regular, limp at the same time, kind of scraping me up, hand all scraped up. I'm like, oh, and you know what I'm saying? But I'm just like, boy, I'm too old for this. But
So man, man, let me get this straight, man. You fell, you jumped up quick, and you was walking like Fred Sanford and Bubba.
yeah, exactly.
He ain't been down since 62, so you know he had to jump up with
Yeah, because I said, listen, I ain't felt like that in a long time. You know, most of the time I call it you fall, you stumble a little bit, but you catch yourself. But for me just to flat out just bust my ass, I ain't done that in a long time, boy.
Oh man.
But anyway, y'all, we'll get into it. Let's before we even get to the draft, let's talk about this game last night. You know what I'm saying? So let's talk about the fact that they keep counting this man out over and over and over again. All we done heard for 2 weeks since Luka and AR been out that the Lakers got zero chance of win this series. They be lucky if they don't get swept. All this kind of stuff. And my whole thing is I always say you can't count LeBron out in these moments. He gonna at least give you a game or two by himself. Really, it's not even about him. It's about the others. If they were gonna step up, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm glad Marcus Smart and Rui and Luke Kennard giving us something. Because DeAndre Ayton might as well be 5'3" because he ain't giving us nothing. That's a 6'10" dude. So I'm gonna let you jump on it, Coach, and you tell me how you feel about what you're seeing in this series.
Well, I've always said that Smart was a great floor general. He did a great job when he was at Boston. I hated to see him come out of Boston, but what a pickup for the Lakers. And again, I think that LeBron's issue will always be, or people will always, they won't appreciate him till he's off the floor, right? for him to be 41 years old, doing the thing that he's doing, I want to just roll the ball over to somebody that says, all right, you go out there and do that at your current age. You may not be 42, playing at a high level, and it makes other people around him great. And again, you're just happy for him, happy for his legacy, but most importantly, it's just a great team win. And again, I think it starts with the backcourt. I think Smart should get more credit. And like you said, Kennard is playing out of his mind, which you need. But you are disappointed that your big is not giving you more. But you're right. Everybody had them home because they didn't have, Luka. And, sometimes, and here's the problem I have with Luka, and I'll be done when I get off my soapbox. What does it give you if he doesn't have the ball in his hands? He has to have the ball in his hands to make anything happen. He can't, he's a ball dominant player. And it's almost, when I think of Luka, I think of Russell Westbrook. So, but again, congratulations to the Lakers and KD. Sometimes, dude, you messed up when you left and went with Golden State, got the 2 rings, and ever since then, you've always ended up on the bad squad. So, hats off to LeBron in the game.
I'm gonna say this, Jacob, before you jump in, to piggyback with me and your conversation the other day, me and you had, Jacob, when you talked about how you with JJ Redick, that you felt like he wasn't a good coach because of why it take him so long to kind of unravel and see these other players that can play. And what I was telling Jacob the other day, I said, well, it's not so much a JJ Redick's problem, it was a Luka problem, like you just said. Luka would dribble the air out the ball, then with 4 or 5 seconds, if he don't have a good shot, then he'll decide to pass it to an open man, and then you can't just throw it to a player and they don't have any rhythm, or or whatever, or spot it up correctly to take a certain shot. Whereas LeBron, over the time that he's taken back over, it's funny. I'm gonna say this real quick. If y'all remember, about a month ago, LeBron was in an interview and he said, when I was out for those 15 games or whatever he was out, I sat back and watched Luka and Austin Reeves. And I told them, y'all do what y'all do. I'm going to fit in. I'm going to figure it out. Don't figure it out for me. I'm going to figure it out on my own, how I fit in. So he knew when they went down, I know what I need to do because I'm the smartest player in the game. So I know what to do when I get out on the floor. I know how to make everybody else better. I know where Luke Kennard needs the ball. I know what to do to make Marcus Smart successful. I know what to do I know Rui likes the ball in the corner 3. You know what I'm saying? So because Rui plays the game just like Chris Bosh. He's like a poor man Chris Bosh when it comes to the way he plays on the offensive end. You know what I'm saying? He don't have the defensive skills, but he definitely has the offensive skills that Chris Bosh had when it comes to knowing how to play with LeBron in a certain way. But go ahead, Jacob.
Well, all I'm gonna say is we always know that LeBron gonna get his, right? But how he's made the players that used to be the bag boys at the public grocery store look like all stars, that's phenomenal. Because I didn't know who Luke Kennard was, man. I thought they got him off somebody AAU basketball team. Like what did he go to school at? Frosted Flake University? Like I didn't know who he was. But I'm just saying, man, they look great, man. So I will say this right here. Just to go to something else. The way McCollum is cooking Brunson, man, listen, man. I was like, McCollum is 110 years old and cooking Brunson like that, man. He every time he get the ball, he's cooking them, bro. And not only cooking him, he cooked 3 different players on the team. Hart, Brunson, and McBride. I said, man, if you let somebody that's 110 beat you and he a lifetime member of AARP, New York, y'all looking bad, boy. Y'all looking bad.
Well, before we introduce our guest, if he 110, how old is LeBron? 245?
LeBron is 147 on the dot. His first assist was to John the Baptist.
You know what? How you doing, sir? See, you done walked in some mess. You know what I'm saying? How you
That's
doing,
all
Mr.
good.
Rutland?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm
Excellent.
good. I'm good. So we just go ahead and jump right into it, man. I'm gonna go ahead and let Jacob take off since he invited you. So we always let the person who invited the person jump, be the first to ask the first question. So I'm gonna go ahead and let
Yeah.
Jacob jump on in.
What's up,
Gotcha.
brother Tony? How you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, 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 man. A blessing to have you, man. So let's jump into who you are, man. So when people ask who you are, with all the things that you've accomplished, man, I know that's a loaded question, but what is that answer?
Um, it's hard to say because I'm real humble when I don't really tell a lot of like my players and stuff like my accomplishments and all that stuff. But me as a player, I thought I was just I can say that I was just a team player. No matter what throughout my career, I've always been the other guy. So I guess if you would put it all in, what type of player that I was just that other guy. I didn't have to be the man. I didn't care if I was the man, but if it came down to it, if I needed to score, if I needed to do whatever, I could. But just being the other player and just being able to just play the game how it's supposed to be played.
Now, brother Tony, let's not do that, brother Tony. We I got eyes. I can't. You got eyes, and Coach Goins got eyes. So we seen you cook. So and you was cooking, and you played. In that era, man, where people took the game of basketball so serious, man, and if you wasn't good, you had to get good to really stake your claim, man. So how was that transition from high school to college?
It was tough, but I think my dad, being in the military, growing up, he always took me to the military base to sharpen my skills. Those older guys, they weren't going to let no young guy come in and try to take over their territory. So it got me better. But when I got to Wake Forest, I had a chip on my shoulder again. Just being the other guy, I've always had to play, at second fiddle. But my skills and stuff was just as good as anybody else. But for me, it was just proving everybody that, hey, I belong. I don't care about rankings. I might be the lowest ranking person on the team, but I was going to show you that I can really play and show you my skills. So when I came into Wake Forest, I wasn't the highest ranked freshman coming in, but my goal was to come in and either start or get a lot of minutes, and I was able to do that my freshman year. I mean, even in practice, I talk trash, and me and Randolph Childress are still friends today, and we're close friends, and we always talk. And I think me coming in, I don't think he was used to a freshman coming in and say, "I'm gonna take your position." Now you're talking about an all ACC guy, and you hear this freshman coming in and say you're about to take his position. I think he took it personal, but at the end of the day, um, it caused us to have a great relationship because I pushed him and he pushed me.
Okay, okay, cool, cool, cool. Coach Goins, I see you.
Oh
Go
man,
ahead.
now I'm ready to roll. This man got it done in the ACC. So again, it's a pleasure to have you on, Mr. Rutland. So,
I appreciate it.
here's where I want to go, and Jacob he kind of put the formula together, and I just want to pull it out of the oven. The ACC, people want to say it's not what it used to be. In your opinion, is it because of the iconic coaches retiring? Is it because of the expansion of the league? What do you think is what's missing in the ACC as it relates to basketball?
I do think it they brought a lot of teams in, and I think the tradition of it kind of got watered down. Although I think the competition is great, but when you have a certain amount of teams and you're playing everybody pretty much twice, anybody can be beaten at that particular night, and you think about it, the last place team can get you. And I mean, it still goes for this year. I mean, the conference now, but when you're playing against Dukes and Carolinas, and then you got Maryland, and then the Clemsons and stuff like that. You knew what you was getting into every night. Now it was just a war. So, just to make sure that, I think it's kind of like not watered down per se, but I just think that it's just way too many teams for it to be competitive. And I think it has a lot to do with the money issues and NILs and all this stuff, and teams trying to get in and try to make sure that they get a cut of the money and stuff like that. But as far as the competition wise, it was never a doubt that if you won the ACC championship, you was probably the number one seed in the tournament.
Excellent, excellent. All right, so I'm gonna hit. I'm swinging for the fences on this one, guys. So in that, what is your proudest moment of being a Demon Deacon?
I would say it's two. One, I think really winning in Carolina my freshman year. I think one that was Randolph's first win at Carolina at the time, and he was a senior. So, it's hard to win at those places. Winning there, and we had a great game there. And me being a freshman, I did some things that freshmen don't normally do, like throwing an alley-oop towards the end of the game to Scooter Banks. And even Billy Packer was like, for a freshman to do that, it was unheard of. And winning 2 ACC championships. I think the freshman year, was great because, it was the first time since, a while, I believe in the 60s. And then to do it back to back, I think, we can be considered as, one of the best teams that come through to Wake Forest. So, to do it without Randolph Childress and still do it with Tim Duncan. And I have a bigger part. I would say, winning at Carolina and winning the second ACC championship was my biggest attribute to Wake Forest.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. Great career. All right, so it looks like this may be the number 1 draft pick. I'm getting ready to kick it over to the Chicago Bulls. He look like he's sitting in the green room. You got it, bro.
All right, so first of all, Mr. Rutland, I ain't gonna let you do this to yourself when you talk about, oh, you good with being second fiddle and all this, and I done read your bio. You done played with AI, you done played with Tim Duncan, you done played with Randolph Childress, you done played with all these legendary players and held your own. And secondly, everybody on this panel know right now, back in the 90s, 80s and 90s, ain't nowhere in the world you going to the ACC unless you can play. You know what I'm saying? It just flat out. I don't care what school in the ACC you played in the 90s and the 2000s, early 2000s. If you couldn't play, you weren't playing in no ACC. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, yeah, I agree. I was blessed to have a career. I played with Boo Williams, who's still doing it today in the grassroots. He's been doing it right for the longest. And, to play with Allen Iverson, one thing about my dad, I say playing second fiddle to people, but, my dad was the one that told me, like, hey, ride his coattail. You know what I mean? Like, when people come see him play, they're going to see you play. So whenever, you work out, I was in the gym, 5 a.m., going to the military base and, making sure that I got my craft right. So anytime that a coach came in to see, Allen play, they would see me play. And, I got the benefit of it because, if they couldn't get him, they were like, well, shoot, if we can't get him, we can get him. Because he's just as good. And so, I never, took it bad or say, hey, well, why is he getting all the attention? When I got home, I would say that, but, my dad just made it, clear to me, just say, hey, ride his coattail. I mean, people are going to come see him play. So when they come see him play, they'll see you. And it was a couple of coaches that really, because back then it wasn't really social media. So they just knew of the name Allen Iverson. So when they come in the gym and they saw Al, like, we're coming to see Allen Iverson play, sometimes they thought I was him. You know what I mean? Because a lot of teams will play him and make sure he didn't get off. But, I was able to do that.
Okay, so did you and AI have a relationship, like a friendship off the court?
Oh yeah, we still do today. I'm going there next week to coach in his All-American Classic, where we have a world versus USA, and then we have the top, All-Americans coming in and playing in there. So, me and him, we've been playing AAU ball since we were 11.
Wow.
It's crazy because we were one of the first youth AAU programs for Boo Williams that we together as a team. So starting at 11, that was when Boo only had like 17 and under, and then he opened it up for the younger ages. And my dad saw it in the newspaper, and from there we went to Anderson Park, which was in Newport News, and that's when you see the pictures of Allen, and you see Morocco Brown, Aaron Brooks, Damon Baco, myself, Allen. That was that first AAU program team that Boo had, and that was one of the greatest teams that, as far as I'm concerned, that we had, because we went to nationals. We didn't have guys. That was the first time opened my eyes to guys being our age that were like, we were 13 and we saw guys that were 6'5", 6'6". You know what I mean? So it was an eye opener for us, because we thought we were the best just because we were the best in Virginia. And then when we saw other teams from other states, we got a lot of work to do, because these guys are 6'6", 6'5", and they Duncan, and we 13. You know what I mean? So it was unheard of. But I think that was the biggest eye opener for us.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you one other question before I throw it back to Jacob. Were you there, or were you there the night when he got into the trouble, or and if you wasn't, did you when you first heard about it, what did you think?
So I wasn't there. I believe we had a game the night before or the night of, and they asked me to come, but my dad, being a military dad, he was like, nah, it's, get back. We might have a game. It was something to that effect. And so I did not go. And then when I got word of it, it was just like sad, because, I tell a lot of people that, growing up, my dad kind of like sheltered me. So I didn't know anything about the racism thing. I didn't know about, the black and white thing until, like, you see documentaries and all this stuff, because my dad he was raised in Philadelphia. So he kind of took me under his wing and kind of like kept me sheltered. So I didn't see that stuff. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like I was just outgoing and going to places by myself. But, I knew certain places that not to go to. And, so when that thing happened, man, it was sad, because we were in our junior year when it happened. And he, didn't go to court until our senior year. And that's when, in the beginning of our senior year, when he got convicted and he had to go to prison, it was going into our senior year. We had just won a state championship. Like, we were thinking about, going back to back. And then for him to get convicted from the judge, we was like, man, there's no way. You know what I mean? So we heard it when we was in school, and, we were sad, and, we just try to stay positive for him. But, it was a bad thing that went out in Hampton.
Okay, well, we got a question from I would call our silent partner, Randy Page. He said, what was the experience like going on that run as a team winning the ACC tournament? But also, I know you already talked about that part, but watching Randolph Childress have that run he had, because I was going to ask you that, but Randy beat me to it, but it's cool.
No, it was, being a freshman, I won a state championship my junior year. So it wasn't like I wasn't used to like winning a championship and then, being with Boo Williams and we win a national championship at AAU. It wasn't like I haven't, experienced trying to win, but it was a different feeling, you know what I mean? Because you had different guys who knew the rivalry between North Carolinas and your Dukes. And, for me, it was always UVA, because I was a Virginia guy. So anytime I played Virginia, I felt like that was my personal rivalry. But for the schools, they had rivalries. So, Wake Forest was always Duke and North Carolina, because that was the biggest thing. And then for Duke and Carolina, that was the biggest rivalry. So, for me, I took it all in. I was a student of the game. I made sure that I got the scouting reports, and I was just making sure that when my number was called, it was good. But, to watch Randolph, in the ACC tournament, it was crazy, because the practices before we started the ACC tournament, he dislocated his pinky, and he did it playing defense on me, because I was on the scout team. And, I was like, oh man, I did this. I was like, man, it hurts our chances to try to win the tournament because I didn't know what how serious the injury was, and he dislocated his pinky. And I don't know if you remember, but he always would go back and he would get it taped and all this other stuff. But he still was able to play. And, and that practice, they were like, well, Tony, you the next guy up and this, that. And I was like, man, listen, don't put all that pressure on me. I'm a freshman. You know what I mean? Because, Randolph is the senior. He's the man. And, but going into that tournament, man, that first game against Duke, to see him huddle us up, and he was like, man, he's not going out like that. And he was like, if y'all not gonna go with me, just pass me the ball and get out the way.
Shoo.
And from that point on, man, he just went on a spell where it was just like a video game. He got to his spots. It didn't matter who was guarding him. It didn't matter where he shot it from. Everything went in. And I think it was like a trickle down effect because when he was in the zone, it made us feel like we were in the zone. We could hit everything. And so everything was going well for us, man. It was just like a big movie, a big dream, because just to, hear 15 to 20,000 people in Greensboro yelling, because whoever we played didn't like the other team. You know what I mean? So if it was Duke, nobody liked Duke, so they cheered for us. If it was Carolina, nobody liked Carolina, they cheered for us. You know what I mean? So just to hear the crowd and just to see him go off, man, like I knew I had a job to do. My job was to pass him the ball, and if I was open, to try to knock down the shot and play defense. But man, it was amazing just being on the court watching it live.
Mm.
Ooh.
Go ahead, Jacob.
All right, so brother Tony, man, the time at Wake Forest, man, you accomplished a lot, and but that transition from going to Wake Forest and then going overseas to play professional basketball, man, what is what is that transition like, and what kind of challenges did you face?
Well, just me being in the Air Force and being half Korean, my dad was black, my mom was Korean. The culture wise, it didn't really shock me any because I was just used to different things. Um, but I was able to go back into my high school days where I was a scorer, going
Mm.
overseas. A lot of times when I was at Wake Forest and I spent most of my times playing with guys from Winston-Salem State or A&T and pickup games, they will always be like, oh, you play that Wake Forest ball, you play that, basically pass, cut, this and that. And I'm like, y'all don't know where I'm from. Like
Mm.
I'm from Hampton. And so when I would catch alley oops or I take it to the backseat, I cross you over, shoot, I was able to gain my respect from them because I could change my game. And I think that's the difference for a lot of people who go overseas. You have to make sure that you play your game. No matter where you go to college, if you're getting paid to be the man. Now you can go, it depends now, but if you go overseas and they're paying you a lot of money, you might score 15 points and win, but they want you to score 25 and win, or 25 and lose, because they want to make sure that they're paying you for everything that you get. So when I was overseas, I was able to go back into my high school days where I could play the combo guard. Like, I can take as many shots as I want and, still make everybody better. So, I was able to be in my comfort zone. And I think a lot of times people don't understand that. Like when you're over there, you got to go and you got to play the way you're supposed to. And that if you got to get 30 points, you got to get 30 points.
Okay, so going overseas, man. So a lot of athletes that don't make it into the NBA, they don't really understand, the barrier that you got to go through to find a good agent. And
Yeah.
so for you, um, what can you tell the younger athletes that may not make, the NBA, that potentially want to go overseas, about finding a great agent?
I think really it's just about networking. I was able to network and find some good agents that were connected with teams. A lot of times, The European teams, they want NBA guys and this and that. Whoever has videos of them scoring, but nowadays you might have to go over there and prove yourself. If you want all this money, you might have to go over there and prove yourself first, and then the money will come. I realized that going over there and playing in Euro games and proving myself, the money came later on. But the thing about it is, a lot of people, like when I worked out with the Sixers before I went overseas, I believe it was Tony DeLeo. He was the general manager with the Sixers, and he was like, Tony, he was like, I said, so what should I do? Should I go to the CBA or go overseas? He was like, Tony, I'm gonna be honest with you. He was like, go get money. He was like, if you're doing what you're supposed to do, NBA will find you. And so I think that goes for anybody. Like if your ultimate goal was to go to the NBA, if you do work overseas, the NBA will find you, and they'll make sure that they'll give you an opportunity to play.
Okay, Coach Goins, back to you, man.
Oh man, you know what? When he was talking that all that boo, first of all, Mr. I live in right outside Charlottesville, Virginia. So
Okay.
when you mentioned boo, back in my day when I was coaching my guys, we went down and we won the 14U and went to the
Yeah.
Nationals. And when you were talking there and Aaron Brooks and UVA, I'm like, man, he was on the team. If you guys don't know, Aaron Brooks was quarterback at the UVA.
Yep.
And he was on the same high school. Man, good God. When y'all showed up, well, I guess everybody's already sitting there, had the popcorn and they drinks ready to go. When y'all walked in the
He's a
gym.
quarterback with the Saints.
God,
You know what I
no.
mean? So, I mean, we had a lot of guys, a lot of talent. We had Joe Smith growing up, you know what I mean? So that's I played with 3 number 1 picks, Allen, him, and Tim Duncan, all together. So, man, it was a battle because, I say it now, AAU is a little watered down. My son he's about to turn 10. I don't really have him in AU. I told him when the time comes, we'll put him in AU. I let him experience a little bit, last year, but now it's about just working on his fundamentals and, still having fun because, it's to me, I think, AU is really not important till maybe your freshman, sophomore year. I know like Nike now is putting a lot of money into the 8th grade um, group. So, they have a little, a Nike tour or whatever, but, you know, you can't get a scholarship in 8th grade, 7th grade, 6th grade. Like, I don't understand why people get so hyped about rankings because it doesn't matter until, you get 10th, 11th grade. But if you can play, people who know basketball know that you got the skills to play at the next level.
Absolutely. So here's my question. When you were donning that uniform at Wake Forest, there was a number on the front. It was 30.
Mm-hmm.
Was that your go-to number? Was that always your number? What made 30 be the jersey number?
So in high school, I was number 4, and Allen was number 3. And so when I got to Wake Forest, I don't think number 4 was available. So how I normally do it is I go by birthdays, and so my mom's birthday was December 30th, and so that's where I picked number 30, and that's where it stuck with me. It was my mom's birthday, which was December 30th. So number 30 was it, and a lot of people don't understand, like, if people saw me play, I was shooting once I got cross half court. I was doing things, I'm not saying I was Steph Curry or whatever, but the things that he was doing, I could shoot and I could do a lot of things before he was even doing it. And, I know for him growing up and seeing his dad shooting, I mean, he had one of the greatest shots in the NBA in the area. So um, I just hope my son can, emulate and do the things that I do. But at the end of the day, man, it was just my mom's birthday, and that was just a good luck charm for me.
Absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, man, I mean, when you talk about that, a lot of people can only imagine playing with that type of talent. on the high school team and being collabing like you guys were with Boo. So just tremendous. So, all right there, Icon. You look like you ready to go to the rack right now, bro.
So I got a question. When it came to playing with Tim Duncan, and it's always been a mystery on his personality because he was so quiet and serene on the court and just like that silent assassin. He gonna give you his 25 and 15 every night, but he ain't saying nothing. Like he just there. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
what was him as a person? What was that like?
Man, he was totally different once he was in the circle. Like you'll be surprised like how much conversations he would give you in a locker room or just like on the bus or whatever. But like he was a guy with different personalities. And he'll tell you or anybody else will tell you, he felt like he can change into anybody and just adapt to whoever. Um, he didn't want attention. He didn't need attention. He just, went out and played. But when I say like he was real good at video games, like we had video games in the locker room. He knew every move. He knew every game. He was into it. He was one of those guys that if you was in the circle, you would say that's not the Tim Duncan everybody's talking about. The quiet, you know what I mean? Because we knew him for something different. And, I was his roommate sometimes on the road, and he'll get a call from one of his Virgin Island friends. And I mean, he started speaking the language fast, like he was from the island and this and that. I was like, man, who are you? Because I'm like, I don't see this, but he was a real man. He was down to earth, and that's what I would tell people. A lot of times, people like, NBA or NFL guys, they get a bad rep about not signing autographs and this and that. But a lot of times, if you start one, then you're gonna probably have to sign 1,000, and you're not gonna be able to eat or spend time with your family. But if they have to say no, it's not because they're like that, but if they start it for one, they're gonna have to do it for all. And sometimes it's unfortunate, but I kind of like know and feel how they are.
I understand. So your coach was Dave Odom, right?
Yes, he was.
So what was that you could tell us about Dave Odom? Because I don't think he gets the rep and he doesn't get the recognition and the respect that some of the other ones do. And to be honest with you, and it's probably been the last time Wake Forest really been great. It's under his tutelage. So
Yeah,
so kind of talk about Dave Odom a little bit.
man. I kind of like use everything that I learned, is from my dad and him and their coaching style, and I kind of like try to use that now. Um, how I coach now in high school. Coach Odom was a guy that he was into details. Um, he knew how to coach. He had his style. He had his system, and he was about developing players, getting them stronger, making sure that you got your education, making sure that you wasn't doing nothing stupid. But at the end of the day, you were going to learn the game. And a lot of it had to do with, the assistants that he had around, teaching us about film study, teaching us about scouting reports. So for him, it was about details. I think he was underrated as a coach. He won 2 ACC championships, and he was like one of the most underrated paid coaches in the ACC. And when you got all these other coaches making millions of dollars, he wasn't even making that. And so I think now I think he gets the respect just because Wake Forest hadn't been the same. But the game has changed as well. But for him, he taught us a lot of lessons, lot of life lessons. What to trust, what not to trust, what was good, not what was bad, and it's like really being in a family. I can't say that everything that we had was good. What I mean, just like every family, you're gonna have your ups and downs. And but at the end of the day, he respected me as a player. He allowed me to make calls. He allowed me to call him off when he was calling plays because he said I was the point guard, and he allowed me to, hey, if I had a call, if I had a play in mind and I called it, he let me do it. And I always say that's pretty much like a player's coach. He realized, I was playing the game, and I was able to. I had the feel of the game, and he was able to let me go and make some calls.
Go ahead, Jacob.
So growing up, who was your top three players that you loved?
Um, Dr. J was my idol for sure. Um, my dad growing up, in Philadelphia, I'm Philly everything, Sixers, Eagles, Flyers, it didn't matter. I was Philly everything. So Dr. J was one of the guys that he told me to kind of model my game with, and that's like on the court and off the court. He always said, just how well he played on the court, he was just as bad off the court, meaning he dressed nice. He, didn't get in trouble, and he just carried himself well. And, so Dr. J was one of the guys that I always try to model my game after. Of course, MJ, my college player for sure was Allen Houston.
Shoo.
Um, when he was at Tennessee, I got
Mm.
recruited by Wade Houston, and he came to my house, and he was graduating. He called him, and that was my favorite college player. I was pretty much a lot of old school. My dad made me watch film. Chris Jackson, Mahmoud, now, but just the way. Kenny Smith. Guys like that was the way I tried to kind of like model my game after. Those guys, they were point guards, not tall, but at the end of the day, they could score, they could shoot, and they can be, get guys involved. And so those are the guys that I really, really looked up to.
So let me tell you a funny story. When when we was growing up, even though I was a Carolina fan, but I used to watch a lot of Glenn Big Dog Robinson.
Yeah.
And so I would bet my friends, I was like, I bet Big Dog gonna have 25, 10, and 7. And
Hmm.
I used to take their money cause they thought cause Big Dog played, ain't nobody watching no Purdue. I said, okay,
Yeah,
okay. And so Big Dog was one of my favorite college players ever, man. You know what I mean? I
man.
love Glenn Big Dog Robinson.
He was a beast. Gene Katie actually came to my house. He recruited me. The only reason why I didn't take a trip to Purdue is because every time I saw him coach, he just looked mean. He just looked mean, and I was like, Coach, he was like, come on, I got a jet ready for you. Let's go. And I'm like, nah, I can't do it because he just always looked mean. Like I was like, I can't do it. He might make me run or something, but he was just one of those coaches that he never looked happy. And for me to have him in the house, he smiled and all that stuff. But I was like, I see you on TV and you'll never look happy. But yeah,
Uh,
he was a beast. He was a beast.
we got another question real quick from Coach Page. What are some things that Coach Bailey taught y'all that translated to your coaching career on and off the court?
I think really just um, adjusting to the team that you have. Coach Bailey, when we were in the eighth grade, he had two great bigs that probably were the last bigs to come through Beth, Ohio, and that was Corey Stewart and Chris. And they were like 6'10", maybe 6'7", or 6'8". Between 6'7" and 6'10". They seemed 7 foot to me because I was short, and going in the eighth grade. But he changed all that. When me and Alan became freshmen, he let us go. He changed his style. He was a slow pace coach. And then when we got there, we changed everything and went to Loyola Marymount. And I realized that, sometimes you might be stuck in your ways, but you might have to change for the better of the team. And I think that's the biggest thing. I might run something now, but turn around and I say that's not going to work. So I need to adjust it for my players. I can't run a Kentucky offense when I have Princeton players. So, it doesn't make sense. And I think that was the biggest thing for me is just being able to adjust to my team.
Okay, I got a question for all of you.
Okay.
Since you play in VA, most of your youth in your high school career,
Hmm.
who is the best two players that ever played for UVA in your opinion?
The best two players. I let him go since he's from Charlottesville.
All right, you want me to go? All right,
Go ahead.
so and I'm real biased by this one because he's a great friend of mine. None other than Mr. Ralph Sampson.
For sure.
Would be number one, hands down. And I always ask Ralph this now. I said, if there was NIL money back when you played, he said, man, I'd probably be making 500 million, right?
He wouldn't left early.
The second one, oh my gosh, that would be, I would go back in the day and probably pick Wally Walker. You guys don't know. Again, I just know that since I've been in Virginia the last 25 years. But yeah, Ralph and Wally Walker would, definitely would be in my mix.
Would you throw Alexander in there that played for UVA?
Corey Alexander?
Yes, sir.
Or Courtney?
I'm sorry?
Both really.
Oh yeah, Corey. And I see Corey quite often at different events around the time. Yeah, but Corey. Sean Singletary, Brian Stiff. There's just there's been a lot of great guards that come through UVA, and the same thing. People don't realize that Coach Odom was Ralph's assistant coach. And now his son is the head coach at UVA. So UVA basketball has been there, and it's just unfortunately, there's never been able to have a great guard. Like Ralph never had really great guards when he was there. Othell and Ricky Stokes, they were okay, but they just weren't. They just weren't the premier guards. Plus, it's a different institution to get into. You can't be splitting verbs going to UVA.
Yeah,
you got to from the neck up. You got to be squared away.
That's the difference.
Well,
I say Ralph Sampson definitely is top. It's just hard to catch the second one. Coach Ricky Stokes was my assistant there. I know Coach Odom, had him there, and he coached him when he was at UVA too. But, I was a Brian Stith guy. I saw Brian Stith, in high school. That was one thing my dad, man, we didn't just sit and stay in Hampton and watch high school. We traveled. One of my cousins played at Tab, and he was on the team with Terry Kirby and Chris Slade, and they played Brian Stith at Brunswick and in one of the state tournaments, and that was a battle itself. And so one thing about my dad, man, we always traveled, and he wanted me to see basketball and football. He was a football guy, so we traveled. It wasn't anything that, we got in our 83 Buick Electra, and we was on the road. We was gone, And so seeing guys like Brian Stith and, Terry Kirby and, Chris Slade and, Warren, Warren from Thomas Jefferson. We saw him play, like, Grant Hill when he was at South Hill. So I've seen a lot of battles, and I love Harold. Me and Harold Dean battled, and they had Jason Williford, you had Junior Burroughs, you had, that team was stacked. It was crazy, and it was a tough team to play. But I think we were just a little bit deeper than UVA. So, but yeah, I wanted to go to UVA. They had one scholarship left. Jeff Jones. It was between me and Curtis Staples, and Curtis Staples was, Curtis Staples had an opportunity to go to Wake Forest as well. They wanted me and him to come in, but he chose UVA. And then when that happened, I didn't hear anything back from anybody from UVA, and so I think that was the reason why I said my rivalry was UVA, because after he committed, I didn't hear anything back from the coach. And, I think that it's nothing personal, but that's just the business.
Well,
Right.
I would say this.
So
Go ahead.
I just want to say this, Icon. So, and the reason why I say that, because, in the ACC, the UVAs and the Marylands and the players that we seen are growing up, when college basketball was college basketball. I just feel like a lot of players that went there, UVA, that were standout players and that was exciting on the court, they really never get their due justice now that they moved on from UVA. So that's why I brought up that school, UVA.
No, for sure.
Well, well, we have to give one honorable mention. And 'cause I know we old, all the old on here, old school, older. Look at coach. But DeAndre Hunter, he deserves a little bit of, he did help
Yeah,
them
for
win the
sure.
national championship. I'm
Yeah,
saying,
I mean, he helped them on that run. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
he's a great pro. I mean, it's a lot of guys that come through UVA, and like you said, Wake Forest is a private school. I think us and Duke are the only private schools in the ACC. Um, we had, I think, a total of 3,500 students, and Duke probably was at 5,000 students. Um, and so when it comes to education, just like UVA, we're a private school. Our standards is crazy, and so if you ain't up to par by Wake Forest standards, you wasn't playing. And I think that's what hurts a lot of the programs now, especially with NIL deals. And you're talking about playing and winning championships. You still have to get your education. If you're not doing nothing in the classroom, you're not going to be eligible. And so it's always harder to go to a private school than it is a public school.
okay,
Absolutely.
well, I appreciate you coming. Yeah,
I can let me say this. It's funny you mentioned that about Duke, Wake Forest, UVA. So any school, cause I'm a church boy, so I know this stuff. So any school that's under that Southern Baptist Association, their their academic curriculum is
Yeah,
real high, and so
it is.
anybody just can't get in them schools. You know what I mean?
Nah, yeah,
Because that's the standard that they set for the schools that they donate heavily to.
for sure, for sure.
you know. Well, everybody, please subscribe to our channel. It's 910 SNE on YouTube. But Mr. Rutland, I just want to thank you for coming on here tonight.
No problem.
I know you're a busy man, and
Anytime.
anytime we can get a legend, and you know what, guys, the people always say we want to give people their flowers, and I thought about that for a second. I said I kind of got a crazy mind. Y'all know I'm crazy a little bit. So I said instead of saying giving them flowers, we usually start saying give them their balloons. Because when do you get flowers? You get flowers at a funeral, at
Yeah,
a dog, when people in the hospital, and maybe a first date, and they don't always turn out good. So we
it
need to
don't.
start saying give out balloons. Because
I'm with
balloons is
that
always a happy atmosphere when you give out a balloon in most cases.
for sure,
You know what
for
I'm saying?
sure.
So I'm gonna say tonight we're gonna give Mr. Rutland his balloons.
I
You know what I
appreciate
mean?
it.
You know what I'm saying? But yeah, anything you want you leave us with before we get out of here, and go on with your blessed week.
Man, I appreciate it. Again, North Carolina is like second home to me. I knew a lot of people from the Winston and Raleigh, Durham area. So, uh, I look forward to coming back to Wake Forest, and especially now with Justin Gainey taking over at NC State. We played against each other throughout college, and I know he's going to do well there. He was at UT um, while I was here in Nashville area, so I know he's going to do well. I think his heart is going to be into it, and I think he's really going to be in there for the long haul. And I think he's going to be very successful. Um, so I think the people are ready for him to take over. So, I think he just got to go in, battle, and put in his foundation. I think he'll be fine. So I look forward to coming through and going back to Virginia as well.
Okay, one last question. I got to
Uh-huh.
put you on the spot before you leave because you're a legend.
Gotcha.
Your NBA Finals prediction.
Whew. See, man, it's always difficult with the NBA because injuries. I really like how OKC is playing, but I think it's a battle between the Spurs. I think Spurs might be their kryptonite, but I think in a series, if if they can stay healthy, I think OKC will get to the finals, and Boston is playing really well right now. So I got OKC and Boston, maybe OKC pulling it out
Okay,
this year
okay.
again.
All right.
Yeah,
You
So
you
so
kind
I
of
kind
uh,
I got one last question.
yeah,
So brother Tony, do
yes.
you throw your own tournaments anytime for the youth?
So last year I had the Iverson Classic at my school. Jay Williams, who was like the number one sophomore in the nation. He came and played. We had a couple of other teams from Carolina and Alabama. So I partner up with Allen, and we got the Iverson Classic at my school. It's been we did it this year, but my last school we had it. We had college coaches come through. We had a couple of kids who signed with UT, a couple of other Division I schools. So it's not a bad tournament. It's more of a classic, but at the end of the day, I'm trying to bring more recognition to our state because we're considered a football state. And so, at my school, we had two guys go to SEC. We had Joel White. He's going to UT playing secondary is for them. And we had another guy who's going to Ole Miss, Craig Tutt, who, scored like 7 touchdowns in the state tournament championship in football. So, he's going to Ole Miss to be a secondary. So we're considered a football school, state. And so I'm trying to bring the recognition into the basketball because we had talent. My other school, I had to coach against Brandon Miller 4 times. And, it was tough. And so, we do have a lot of talent here. And, Tyler Tanner, who just, I think, entered the draft from Vanderbilt. I had to coach against him. So, it's a lot of talent when it comes to basketball players in the state of Tennessee.
Yeah, so the reason why I asked you that because we would love to come down and do some live commentary for you.
Yeah,
So
man.
you
Anytime, man. Anytime you want. Man, look, is normally after Christmas. We had some teams from Carolina this past year, and I'm pretty sure we'll have some more this year. So I will send out the schedule, and I'll stay in touch, and we'll go from there.
okay,
All right.
appreciate you.
For sure.
Appreciate you, sir. And God bless you and all
I
your
appreciate it.
future endeavors, brother.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Appreciate it. Have a
Have
good
a good
night.
one. You too.
All right.